Well, hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day Award Season 2023 with me, Jordan Woodley. When I decided to watch The Fabelmans, knowing that even before it was released, knowing that this is a Steven Spielberg film that was, even whilst in development, was developing a reputation and people were expecting great things because this is the seminal semi-autobiographical story that really is a reflection of Steven Spielberg's life and almost a reflection on his filmmaking development and that being said, almost a retrospective on who he was as a filmmaker. There was already this clout and atmosphere around the film, and frankly, on some level, I was dreading it because we've developed a culture at the moment in the last, I'd say, 5 years, and it might be because of we're at a point in history where the golden age of cinema is transitioning from a thing that people lived and remembered like a living history to becoming factual history that people are aware of but no one was alive to really represent it. And so we are getting a slew of films, not necessarily films that are about the origin of cinema, but are about the love of cinema, are about the homage to the culture of cinema. So we're thinking back to films like Argo, La La Land, even more recently with Babylon. And as much as I like films that discuss the importance of cinema, the concern is that when we get to the point where film is reflexively looking at itself and looking at its origins, it does become a bit of a dread to think, oh, am I going to watch another acclaimed film about filmmaking? And I have to say, The Fabelmans is not that. And there is a raw honesty to The Fabelmans that really, the truth of it is, it's not that much about filmmaking and the love of cinema. Those things are there, but they're really only part of the character of the story of The Fabelmans. That this is more like films like Belfast or Richard Linklater's Boyhood, that really are more about a filmmaker who is at a sort of later stage of his life, reflecting on his youth and reflecting on those things that shaped him. And then it's also a family story about a family growing up in a certain time period and how that family shifts and changes, how the relationships and dynamics change over the course of a period of time. And I think there is a maturity to it. I think it does show a love of cinema and how important to your primary character cinema is. That really, he really only knows how to express himself through cinema. And how that will, of course, shape the character Sammy, who is, of course, Steven Spielberg's stand-in character, and how that's representative of Steven Spielberg, how presumably he learned to communicate and learned to express and understand the world through cinema by his own directing and like I say, there is homage to his works and reflection. The fact that he was fascinated by World War II, the fact that family is very important to him, and you see these influences and how it shapes the character of Sammy, which again is Steven Spielberg. And it is a beautiful film, and it's beautifully paced, and it's a wonderful family drama and character piece. And I think, to its credit, it really does capture, despite its length, despite the fact that it's telling quite an ambitious story in terms of the passage of time, and talking about themes like racism and anti-Semitism, like the changing dynamics of a family as it begins to fall apart in certain respects. and yet it really does feel like there's a heart to it. And it really does feel like a labour of love that Steven Spielberg is really bearing himself, his soul, to talk about his youth and his experience. And I have to say, consequently, it is a high contender when it comes to the awards. I don't feel like it has a chance, and it is a good contender for Best Picture, but I'm not sure. The acting is phenomenal, and I think it stands good stead for Best Director. I think Michelle Williams stands in good stead. I think Paul Dano stands in good stead, and I think it really, there are certain things that I would be surprised if it didn't get honoured, at least in the Oscars, if not the BAFTAs. I'm really glad to have seen this, even if it doesn't get that level of awards attention, because I don't know, there is something about Spielberg that just is magical. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.